Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Live 605. You're watching us through YouTube, either through the Stray Whisker YouTube page, through my personal page, and through Facebook. As I said, Facebook has been playing up a little bit, but I think they've kind of behaving themselves this week. I've noticed that we were able to upload our live and publicise it the way and it worked the way it was meant to. We live in a very strange world. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. You get that. That's life. That's life. If you're new to this show, place new below. And if you are, where have you been all this time? That's all I want to know. Where have you been? Why haven't you been with us? It is a rather rainy afternoon here in Sydney, Australia, but we will press on because we're indoors and it doesn't matter. Besides, I don't think it would spoil my hairdo because I have no hair to do. This show today is going to be an interesting one. It's one that I've had discussions with people over the years, I have to say, not just recently. I know that sounds like a bit of a hook. Oh, look, I've had all these conversations. No, over the years. This has been something that's been of interest and something that I will share with you. I also want to hear your opinions on this particular topic because I think it is a largely misunderstood topic, basically because of the complexity of the components involved. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about layering fragrances. Yes, that old chestnut. I've heard this time and time again. People love layering their fragrances. They love putting on one fragrance on top of another or, mixing it up a little bit, all in an attempt, of course, to create a bespoke scent, a signature scent, if you like. This is me. This is how I smell. And more often than not, it has quite mixed results. So we're going to look at that, and I'd like to hear your opinion about what you think, whether you think that mixing scents is a sensible, whether it makes sense. Sorry, okay, you're going to get dad jokes, you're going to get a bit of this, a bit of that. Who do we have with us this afternoon? Michael, hello. Yes, it is an interesting topic indeed. And it's one, as I say, that kind of polarises people, Michael. A lot of people swear by it. They think that this is it. This is the way that fragrance, can be experimented with. And there are others that say, no. And by the end of this show, you'll know more or less the sort of camp that I sit in. For those of you that do like to mix your fragrances up, we're going to look at a very few hard and fast rules. I know there are no rules in this, and I know that people say there's no right or wrong answer. It's only what you feel. But there are certain things, certain principles that I think one would be wise to adhere to, simply because you're dealing with the olfactory senses. This is a very, very, very complex organ, the nose, and I think that we can't just assume that if we whack things together, if we just put things together, that they are going to work. It's a very, very interesting topic, which involves not only science, but craft. It's an art form. Leon, nice to see you. I don't know. Oh, look, Leon, I don't know about wisdom. I thank you, sir. I really appreciate that, but I don't know that that wisdom would be a word that I would use. Look, I encourage, we should just think about these things and think about what it is that we're doing when we're actually mixing fragrances and why we would want to do that. Good afternoon, Dave. Nice to see you on the live, and I shall be speaking to you shortly over the telephone. It's been a bit busy of late. Material Science, hello, joining us from YouTube. It's just lovely that people continue and persevere. Look, I know that I put some people to sleep. Good. There are a lot of insomniacs out there. Look no further. I'm drinking my mandatory beverage, a coffee. Whether you're having a virtual coffee with Con or not, Con is going to have coffee in a real sense. I need it. It is my performance-enhancing drug, and it is one which will enable me to push through this topic, this labyrinthine, Byzantine topic Dave Friend, yes, he mixes snakebite menthol with summer fragrances for a real fresh blast. Well, Dave, I'm really interested to hear how that works for you. Obviously it does, because you wouldn't be doing it otherwise. But we'll be talking a little bit about that and the whole... look, scent is a very, very complex topic. And when we wear a scent, I mean, it's an undeniable fact that there is an emotional component to that. Scents make us feel a certain way. They may bring on memories of, a father or grandfather, or they might bring a time that you may have been on vacation somewhere. They may remind you of a certain place. They may remind you of a certain era that you went through. They may remind you of high school, all that sort of stuff. I understand all of that. But I guess what's a little more challenging is, do we really understand what's going into these scents and the complexity of that? So we will be discussing that. Now let's see, who else have we got there? Bjorn, good morning. Good morning. Greetings from Sweden, Bjorn. Of course, where else would you be from, Bjorn? Of course you're from Sweden. Lovely to have you on the live, sir. I really appreciate your input and you being here. Tom, organic scents or olfactory farming? Well, look, Tom, I know you enjoy a cocktail. It's quite often been called perfume or fragrance cocktailing. And yeah, what may work for alcoholic beverages and mixes and things may not work for perfumes and fragrances. There's a whole debate around perfume and fragrance. Michael says that thank you. I'm glad you jumped in, Michael. I don't personally layer myself. I just wear my own enjoyment and also to smell great. Yes, mind you, I have 100 bottles, so to wear one per day, layering doesn't really come to mind. Yes, Michael, I feel you. I know. I actually have many, many fragrances, more fragrances than I will probably be able to get through. But it's an interesting concept, this whole concept of layering. Gerasimo, good morning, Gerasimo. Nice to see you on the live. Smelling has immediate access to emotional memory. Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, there are places that I would visit when I'm in Athens, no doubt, that have a particular scent which evoke a particular emotional response in me. And no matter where you are in the world, scent always brings on an emotional memory, and that's very, very important. And because it's important, I guess it's also a thing that we don't really think about too much. Obviously, if you're into wet shaving and all that kind of stuff and smelling nice, then smell is a given. It's something that we like to smell good. But what is it that we're actually doing? We will look at that today very briefly. What I want to talk to you about, though, is the thing that you may have seen if you've done any research, even taken a cursory glance at fragrancing and scents, you would no doubt have seen this particular diagram. And it is it's a fragrance pyramid. And this more or less talks about how fragrances kind of express themselves. They have a life cycle. We have the top notes, which generally last a very, very short time. So you'll have citruses and your lemons, your mandarins. These are the notes. These are the ones I call a middle C. You'll get a burst of those very, very quickly, and then they will fade away, giving way to the middle notes. And usually they're either florals, they're a greeny note, they're usually fruity or spicy. So you can see that fragrancing kind of begins with a citrus-based burst. There's always some sort of citrusy introduction to a scent. And then, as I say, it gives way to either a floral note or a grassy note, perhaps even fruity or spicy, where you have clove and nutmegs and cinnamons. And these are to be found primarily in Oriental, the Oriental grouping of scents. And of course, the base notes, which are the da-da-da-da, the Beethoven moment. This is the one that will last. They're sometimes called the sort of end notes, and middle notes are sometimes also called heart notes. But and they're usually, the base notes are usually a cedar, a moss, a patchouli, a vanilla, a tonka bean, and these sort of warm scents, very, very warm. They kind of evoke these things. Now, we've all seen this kind of pyramid. But seeing something in a graphical representation is one thing, and then sensing it, taking it in through our senses is quite another. So if I said to someone, oh, look, this particular fragrance has tonka bean in it, what does that actually mean? Now, okay, so tonka bean in and of itself is a very useful note. It's a very popular note in fragrancing, and it's something that is used by many perfumers and fragrance houses. But it's always in symphony. There's always an olfactory symphony, a coming together of these notes. I'm just wondering if you've ever heard a French horn on its own, or a trombone on its own. I mean, all those of you out there who play the French horn or the trombone, I do not intend to cause any offence. But on their own, they can sound a little bit underwhelming. In fact, they can sound like a prolonged fart. You need other notes. You need other notes to bring them out, to really have that expression come out. And that's where this pyramid gives way and tells you about what it is that lasts and what will stay. Tonka bean, smell of hay to me. Yes, absolutely. So you see, that's interesting. Smell of hay to you. Now, if somebody is an urbanite, someone that has never ever, and there are some people out there, that have never left urban settings and have never had the opportunity or the delight of smelling hay, or dare I say it, even wet hay, then that becomes an abstract description to someone. Let us return to this pyramid for a moment. That pyramid was an oversimplification, and it's used as a diagrammatic metaphor, if you like, to explain how it is that scents work. Well, we could go one further step with the metaphor, which also brings in a caution and says, you can't just bring things in together and hope that they're going to work. I can't, for example, throw in vanilla and tonka bean with a bit of lavender and oak moss and hope to get something that is c'est magnifique. It's probably not going to happen. And maybe the pyramid itself and the oversimplification of the pyramid is something that will make you feel like you were able to put these notes together and create a masterpiece. But as we know, not all pyramids are built the same way. In fact, you can get a child to put together a pyramid and it will look something like this. I'm not criticising children, of course, but that is an oversimplification of the olfactory pyramid. So what am I saying? What am I really saying? I'm saying that that scent and scent molecules are so complex. They're so complex that once you start layering scents, you move into an area that is, so somebody presents, let's take this particular scent here. They present this and they bring this to the world and they say, this is our scent. Presumably there was a nose behind this. Someone sat down, they tested it, they looked at all the different components that go into making this particular fragrance, and they bring it to market and they say, voila, here it is. This is for you. You too can be as sensual and as erotic as me just by wearing that scent. Why do we need to layer it with something else, I'm wondering, to make it yours? Well, if anyone knows anything about human biology, you'll know that scents have their own signature once they're put on your skin. Your skin and the way a scent smells on you may be slightly different. I admit it is slight. There aren't vast differences unless, of course, you're sweating arsenic or something. There's something that's coming out of your system that's completely inhuman. Then there are slight variations. And people say, oh, what are you wearing? I'm wearing this particular scent. Oh, I see. It doesn't really smell like that on me. So even what we bring to scent, in that where we put this scent on us, that will create a bespoke scent in a way. So we really need to be mindful that when you're talking about scents and when you're talking about smells, you're talking about complex aromatic chemistry. We're talking about very, very important chemical reactions that are going on continuously, usually in the form of hydrocarbons, although there are various other molecules that go into them. And unless you know the difference between your alkanes, your alkynes, and your alkenes, and you've studied a bit of carbon chemistry, my opinion, and this is only my opinion, is that I would leave it to the craftsperson, the artisan, or the company that puts these together. Now, of course, these large companies, and I'm talking about these large fashion houses that produce scents, it's the bottom line, okay? They just want to produce something that has a very, very, and you'll note that when you go into these large department stores that sell these fragrances, which I won't name, but they're well known and they're usually advertised or sponsored by high-end sports people or actors or whatever it is, you're going to get a very, very strong top note. It's going to be citrus all the way, a mandarin, citrusy kind of scent, because that's the hook. That's the thing that's going to get you in. And then on the dry down, when it starts to move through its middle and base note expressions, you'll say, you know what? I don't really like this scent. I don't know what it is. There's something about it. I don't really like it. It's not really me. I liked it when I first sprayed it. How many of us have felt that? I felt it. And this is what I say to people. Spray a little bit on and just go for a walk. Leave. Move away. Don't stay with us. Just go away and see what, just walk around for 10, 15 minutes and then see if it works for you. That also underscores the complexity of these aromatic molecules. So once you start putting things together, like you would a cocktail, you're not necessarily going to get a very, very delicious drink. Have you tried mixing drinks just based on what you think might work? It's pretty hit and miss. These cocktail recipes are recipes for a reason. It's because they're proven, they work, and they tend to have sort of very, very broad appeal. Now, I am not criticising people that layer. Their fragrances. As I say, there's no right or wrong thing. But what you're doing is you're taking a blend of aromatic molecules and blending it further with other aromatic molecules, which you have no control over, okay? If, as the pyramid shows, there could be citrus notes in it or there could be, woody notes in it, it is what it is. This is it. This is how we present it to you. And you're now going to fiddle at the edges and do other things with it. I don't know. I have found that any time I've tried to layer anything, including a sponge cake, it ends up in disaster. The only thing I enjoy a cocktail. I can do that with great sort of ease. There might be something in that. I don't know. Anyway, right. So this is the thing. So when we say pyramids, nothing exists as a simple pyramid, right? Even the Great Pyramid of Giza is not on its own. So pyramids, scent pyramids, are really part of many other pyramids. They're part of a whole complex of pyramids which go to make up scent. It's not just, oh, this is it, I understand this note, I'm going to put in a bit of citrus, I'm going to throw in some lavender, So these artisans, for example, dear friends of mine, they spend hours and hours on this stuff trying to make it work. Now, you can start from a base and then, work with it and try and build a fragrance that works for you. I personally don't do it myself. I found that layering anything, as I said to you earlier, for me ends up in disaster. So I will use the fragrance as it was intended, and if it works for me, it works, and if it doesn't work, that's fine. So what happens then when you do want to play around with these scents? My advice, and it's fairly simple, is this. Please, if you're going to muck around with it, firstly, you need patience. You need some money too, because it's an expensive business to try and get something bespoke, right? Work with single note fragrances. For example, use a little bit of lavender, try a little bit of oak moss, see how it works with some sandalwood. If something is pre-mixed, it's like taking a blended Scotch whiskey and hoping to create some sort of miracle single malt out of it. It's not going to work, right? These things have already been masterfully blended, and sometimes not so masterfully. So you're blending and blending again. Now, I know we call it layering, and I know that there are different things. The beauty industry loves this. They love this, and they'll also put out a range of fragrances where you can sort of mix and match and create something that's your signature scent. Your signature scent is your sweat. You want your signature sweat? Wear a T-shirt for 3 days non-stop. That's your signature scent. If you want signatures, that's the one. It may, of course, bring on petitions of protest that you might be a little bit on the nose and you smell, but that's your scent. Now, all the other stuff that we're bringing onto ourselves and we're using it, they're scents that have been created in a laboratory somewhere by someone that knows what they're talking about. There was a pun there, of course. And then said to you, okay, here it is, market. Here's the scent. Use this. This one happens to be the gentleman's cologne. Use this. And if you want to put a... Here's another thing. Ask the person that may, if you had access to them, ask them, would you like me to throw in a little bit of Tabasco with your cologne? You went to years and years of developing this cologne. I'm wondering if I can just put in a bit of Tabasco or throw in some tzatziki or something. Is that something that the perfumer? No. And this is why they're called snobs, and this is why they're, oh, no, girl, get away from me. Is there a smoker here? I can smell someone. They take their craft very, very seriously. So it is, I guess, a blend of science and craft or art. But if you are going to mix it, don't go nuts. Test. Use test papers like this. Spray a little bit here and a little bit there. Keep working on it. Put it in your pocket. Walk around. Have a look. See whether it works for you. And more often than not, you might say, you know what? In theory, this should have worked. And it just doesn't. It just doesn't. Now, there are cultures and countries which have done a very, very remarkable job of doing this and mixing it, but those particular scents are also, they existed within a cultural context. I'm thinking principally of the old city of Cairo. If you've ever been to the old city of Cairo, there are perfume shops with these beautiful bottles, absolutely stunning bottles, and they will make a perfume for you. But you don't just turn up there and you say, oh, yeah, I want... So they'll talk to you, generally, if they're a merchant that knows what they're doing, and they will try and put these things together. And you'll see that they're only using minuscule amounts, very, very small quantities. Because that's the other thing about mixing and blending and layering. You go too far, you've ruined it. That's the end of the show. It can be overpowering. It cannot work. So if you're good at doing this layering thing, all the strength and power to you. But it takes a little bit of skill. Do we have any questions? I'm sure we do. Let's see what we've got here. There are some people that have left some comments. Who we got there? Hello, John. First time watching live. Thank you, John. I really appreciate it. You're watching through YouTube, I can see. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I hope we haven't served as a tranquilizer, put you to sleep. Okay, do you change your fragrances with the seasons? I'll answer that straight away. Yes. And if you had to pick just one for use for the rest of your life, what would that be? For the rest of my life? Tom, that's a philosophical question. 1 minute you're asking me if I change in the seasons, and then you're saying, are you suggesting that I remain in the same season all my life? Look, I don't know, something by, or maybe Au Sauvage or something like that. Something that's got enough hedione in it and is a classical scent. But see, scents have changed. Scents, I remember I spoke about this a few weeks back, that one of Elvis Presley's favourite colognes was Brut. Brut. Elvis Presley. And he also liked Canoe. This was his fragrance. Frank Sinatra loved lavender. It's a very, very difficult one. But yes, I think it would have to be something classic, something that I would be able to just wear that almost doesn't have that brings with it a sort of a clean soapiness about it, or something that's a bit sophisticated and doesn't say, oh my God, here comes that bottle of perfume with legs. Yes. So it's a very difficult question to answer. I would probably do something like that, yes, or Savage. Now, who we got here? Michael. I met a girl once that smelled incredible. When I asked what she was wearing, she said it was layered. Best stuff I've ever smelled. Yes. Ladies do this a lot. Ladies layer scents a lot. Look, strictly speaking, if you come straight out of the shower and you've used a particular shampoo and a soap, it has its scent. You then put on your scent, you're already layering. There's layering there. And of course, there's layering also that occurs, as I said, with your natural body scent as well. And pheromones, which is another topic which we'll talk about. And it's also a contentious one, unless you're a bee. Pheromones is a topic that I hold near and dear to my heart. I love it. She never told you what she layered with. Yeah, interesting. Look, sometimes people have often asked me, Con, what are you wearing? And I say, oh, it's the third bottle from the left. I'm not going to tell you what I'm wearing. It's part of my mystique. It's part of my je ne sais quoi, you know. I don't know. I could say I layered it with, I'm just wearing me. But yes, to your point, there are ladies that do layer, and it is encouraged, particularly amongst ladies' fragrances. But what they will find, and we'll return back to this whole layering thing, try and group things that work together. For example, if you're going to go with florals, for florals, and then you start adding warm spices to florals, not even Tom Ford can sell it for you. It becomes, because there's a lot of conflicts there. And there are all sorts of reasons that go back to how our nose perceives scent, and things like Jacobson's organ. Google it, you'll love it. Quite often scent, apart from evoking emotion, also tells us that we're in danger, or that we shouldn't eat a particular thing, or that we shouldn't be here. It's this whole thing that's crept into language about smelling danger. I can smell danger. These things aren't just random quirks of language. They actually are based on the importance of scent and smell. So I have no doubt that lady would have smelled wonderful. Hello, Rick. Nice of you to join us. Really appreciate that. Hi, Con, wishing everything okay. Greetings from Spain. Hola, ¿cómo estás, señor? Thank you for joining us. Brute, the smell of the 70s, absolutely. And it smells nothing like the Brute of today. And of course, we've often spoken about Old Spice as well. That doesn't resemble the old Schulten formula. See, what happens usually is an accountant or a bean counter somewhere, or the board sits down and says, we're not making enough money on this fragrance, change the formulation slightly. We can use some synthetic materials in here and create something that is similar to, and we increase our bottom line. Now, at scale, when you're selling tens of thousands of bottles of this thing, it adds up. So that's another thing. Any other questions or comments that we have here? Hello, Judith. Nice of you to join us on the live. Me either. Keep my sense. Yes. Okay. Now, this is interesting. So, ladies that are out there that are watching this, do you keep your scent secret? Do you not tell people what you're wearing? Depending on how well I know the person, I find that it's something that I don't like do. I don't like asking people what they're wearing, unless, of course, it knocks me out completely and I say, wow, that's incredible. What are you wearing? But I need to know the person. I mean, there needs to be a relationship there. But I have found that there are people that try and sort of say, oh, look, I can't remember what I'm wearing. It's in a tall bottle. They don't want to tell you what they're wearing because they want to keep it a secret. Acqua de minerale oligofrinsate. Actually, this is Lutraiki water. Right. Usually colognes and perfumes don't smell to my nose after 1 minute. So to me, a criticism is if it smells to me. What is it? Aqua colognes. Usually colognes and perfumes don't smell to my nose after 1 minute. So to me, a criterion is if it smells to me. Yes. I agree with you. And interestingly, it's interesting what the nose does after a while, that it becomes accustomed to the scent and you can't smell it anymore. And it's only, there's a term in perfuming called sillage. It's kind of spelt like it should sound like silage or silage, but it's sillage. How much the scent projects, even if even if you've been wearing it 2 or 3 hours or whatever the case may be. Who else do we have here? Steve Wilson. Oh, hello, Steve. Nice to see you on the live again. God, we should stop meeting like this, Steve. It is our own individual pheromones that creates the difference between how the same splash changes from person to person. Is it that? Look, I suspect so. And there's an interesting book that's out now and it's by an author called Sarah Everett. And the book is called The Joy of Sweat. Now, obviously, it's a play on that 70s classic, The Joy of Sex. But it talks about sweat and how sweat itself, no two people's sweat smells the same. So that means that no two people smell the same. And the work that was a lot of the research that was done in this particular book found that the smell of your sweat, I know it's a bit personal, but the smell of your sweat changes. So your sweat when you were 18 smells nothing like the sweat now that you're 50 or 40 or 30 or whatever. I'm not suggesting you're 50, Steve. I know you're still a young man. I know. But your sweat has its own signature and it changes, which is fascinating stuff. It might also explain why I don't mind the smell of tobacco and where I used to hate it before. I don't know. It's really quite interesting. My two most complimented fragrances are Taylor Royal Bond Street, German Street, tick, and Creed Aventus, tick, absolutely. These work. They work. They just work. You wear them, you'll get a compliment. And so there are groupings of notes in those particular scents which people find appealing. And if it's appealing, it sells. And if it sells and it gets compliments for you and you like wearing it and you like the smell itself, then it's a win-win-win as far as I'm concerned. Leon, do scents have an age bracket? My immediate response, and I guess it sort of ties in with what I said earlier about how your sweat changes even as you grow older. So no, scents don't have an age bracket, but they do in a way. You can wear a scent which young men and ladies, which young ladies wear. So for ladies, scents that are sort of very, very floral or whatever, that fits quite nicely with their particular age bracket. Aqua di Gio, for example, the old mineral sort of, aquatic note thing. Every 18 to 27-year-old has either tried it, loved it, and keeps wearing it for a reason, right? So your level of experience, the cilia in your nose, your sense of smell, all these things come together to produce tastes, certain tastes. So the sort of scents that I liked, for example, jazz. Remember jazz from YSL? I used to love jazz. I don't want to know it. I don't want to know about jazz now. And that's not because I've smelled so many other things. As a scent, it doesn't appeal to me. Now, of course, that might be because the scent profile has changed, the formulation has changed, but it was something that appealed to me when I was a younger man and something which does not appeal to me now. Now it has this sense of synthetic, overworked, overcooked kind of scent. But when I was out and about and as a young man, that was the thing. That was what everyone wore. So in terms of, I know that fragrance companies market to certain ages. That is an undeniable fact. They pick a market and they say, right, this is where we're honing in for that. Now, scents that might be a little bit more challenging, that push you a little bit further and say, listen, try this, then I would imagine they skew more towards the older man who is confident enough to wear it. Fragrance is also about confidence. If you don't have confidence to wear it and to worry about what someone else thinks or whatever it is, that comes with, there are times at this particular point in life, I don't particularly care what others think of how I smell, well, within reason. So I'll wear what I like. But my taste has changed. So marketing, yes, definitely. They're marketed to certain people. And they're usually, as I say, that middle C note. Very, very heavy on the citrus and the aquatic notes. They're the ones that you're going to find in these large stores, these large box stores or department stores that are on the counter, and they're the ones that they're pushing at Christmas and, all these very special sales. They're the one, you know what they are, I don't have to mention them. They're the ones that will appeal to a younger market. As you get a little bit older, you want a little bit more sophistication. You want something that brings on something else, that speaks about who you are as well. Whereas when you're a young person, you just want to smell nice, I guess, and that's it. So that's, in terms of age bracket, I would say that. Yes, sweat changes from Friday to Saturday depending on how big the Friday night was. Yes, David, that is true. Especially if you've had vindaloo, or you've had a nice heavy garlic dinner or something like that. Then we'll talk about your sweat. We can talk sweat then till the cows come home. Yes. Going back to lady scents, ladies, again, we say floral. As ladies become older, they tend to want to, the fragrance firms and companies and houses tend to push this sort of oriental, this kind of a little bit more spicy floral. And that's a very, very, very difficult combination. Very difficult. You've got to know what you're doing there. You've got to spend the big bucks to try and do your research and find. That's why they bring in these qualified noses that will produce this. But unfortunately, what happens with these qualified noses is they sell out at some point in time. Someone will say, "Listen, this is a contract. Can you develop a fragrance for Ronaldo?" So sure. Can you develop a fragrance for Jessica Parker or whatever name? I don't know, whatever her name is. They're sure, of course I can. And they all smell the same. All inexpensive perfumes smell the same because the top note is the thing that's the hook, gets you in. Lots of citrus, lots of mandarin, lots of bergamot, all the citrusy stuff, and then we'll hide underneath all this other stuff like patchouli and ylang. Whew. Anyway, I had a reaction then, I'm sorry. Good evening from Colorado. Hi, Will. Nice to see you again. I haven't seen you for a while there, Will. Nice of you to join us. Let us know where you're from. I think essentially that's it. I mean, what am I saying? I'm saying that you've got to be really careful when you try and combine scents, when you try and bring, sometimes the two should never, ever, ever meet. But of course, sometimes they do, and you get what's called bocha. There you go. It's a Greek word. Look it up. Ask your Greek friends what bocha means. I will. Yes, I'm so glad that you're here. I really am. Aristide, nice beard. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I'm going to leave it for a little bit. I'm going to leave it for a little bit longer until we come out of lockdown, which will probably be about the 11th of October. But yeah, look, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm sure your beard is looking very, very nice as well. But it's too much. I think now it's starting to get a bit too... Yeah, and look at this thing pretending to grow hair up here. Yeah, anyway, that's enough. Well, folks, the time has come to bid you all farewell. I really appreciate you watching this live. Next week, we've got a very, very interesting live. You'll need to tune in for that. Bocha equals the smell of damp. Of course, Gerasimov would... bocha, damp. Yeah, it's actually... it's true. It's funny how a word that had a very specific... meaning has now sort of crept out and evolved in some way, and now bocha is used as an explanation for others, for other scents or not so pleasantly smelling scents. Anyway, look, I should go because, as they say in Greek, vromisa εδώ. If I stay here for much longer, I'll probably end up. Yes, Gerasimov has laughed. Of course he has. Look, I'm glad we could bring a smile to your face, my good friend Gerasimov. Lovely to see you on the live. Anyway, that's it. Finito la musica. It's time for me to go. Thank you so much. Next week, we have, we're speaking to a very interesting, we've got a journalist on next week. Yes, a photojournalist that works for quite an organisation, Lad Bible, no less. I won't be saying much more than that. And we'll be discussing a number of things with her, lovely young lady. So be sure to catch up on that. If you don't see it live, then it'll be the same time. If you don't see it live, then maybe you should see it on repeat. Anyway, thank you so much. Make sure that you smell your very best. And remember, there are no hard and fast rules, but if you're going to layer things, just be a little bit mindful that things can go very, 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 very wrong. All the very best. We'll see you in the next live.